Applause is the performer's reward, the appreciation by the public of an evening in the opera house. But the audience in the theater has seen only a small part of the drama. Much of the activity goes on behind the scenes, where the audience never goes. So, for the next hour, you are invited backstage at the New York City Opera. I'm Beverly Sills. I'm the General Director of the New York City Opera. There has to be a raison d'etre for an opera company to exist 25 yards away from the Metropolitan Opera. And the reason is repertoire that you can't hear anyplace else. This house is a young, innovative repertory company. A repertory company is a company which performs, as we do, 18 different productions over a 10-week period. A different opera every single night, and not necessarily with the same people playing the same roles all the time. Out of this emerges our own stars. I take a look at the people that are here and see what kind of vehicles will best show them off. That's the first thing. Well, all you have to do is look at us to see that opera singers are not big fat ladies who have horns coming out of their heads and have two steel things here carrying spears. They're attractive, well-educated, versatile people, multilingual. One of our 18 operas this season is Donizetti's Maria Stuarda, about two controversial women, Mary, Queen of Scots, and Queen Elizabeth I of England. I chose to revive Stuarda because I felt that Ashley Putnam was the ideal young woman to play it. At first, when I came into this, by the way, I was not going to interfere. I decided I didn't want to intimidate the other singers. And then, little by little, they began to come into this office and say, you know, I was sort of hoping that you would just talk to me a little bit about the role. And so now I interfere. I make a little set speech and say, we're going to talk for a couple of hours. I'll give it all to you. Discard what you don't want. Take what you think is useful. If it's a lot, terrific. If it's nothing, no hard feelings. I saw this performance of Cavalleria and Pagliacci, and I thought to myself, this is very well directed. I opened up the program, it was Fabrizio Milano. And I just felt that he was such a good character person that I invited him in to do Maria Stuarda. There should be a whole new, fresh approach for a whole new, fresh bunch of people. Marissa Galvany has sung the role of Elizabeth before with distinction. But young John Seabury sings Cecil, Elizabeth's chief advisor and Mary's chief enemy, for the first time. John's fun to watch because he literally has come up from 2- and 3-word parts, little by little. The first time I heard William Justice, I thought, what a handsome man. He's tall and very authoritative, and he'd make a marvelous Talbot in Maria Stuarda. It's such a hard role, and he does it so well. We don't have understudies at the New York City Opera. What we do is to cast more than one singer in each major role so that they can cover each other. A perfect example of this is the part of Leicester in Maria Stuarda. Barry Macaulay will sing on opening night, but Joseph Evans, who will sing it later in the season, is interchangeable with him during the rehearsal period. I discovered Barry during a student performance in San Francisco. As soon as I heard that incredibly beautiful tenor voice, I wanted to work with him. So when I became general director, I tracked him down and got him in here. Our mezzo, Jane Shawless, isn't here either because she's on stage singing. She's the epitome of our repertory singer in that she sings every 3 seconds. She's in virtually every opera that goes on here, in parts ranging from leading lady to singing from the pit. In Stuarda, she's Mary's companion, Anna. She can sing as often as 5 times a week. She's paid a weekly salary, and she's an extraordinary musician.
All right, since we're all together for the first time, actually, we can maybe talk a little bit about this opera and about the characters and about the background and the historical situation. This takes place actually in a specific year, 1587, when Mary had been imprisoned in England for 19 years. So a very long time. And Elizabeth at that point was 54, and Mary was 44. And Elizabeth is not that much older, so there should be a real rivalry, not only as two queens between Elizabeth and Mary, but also as two women.
That would be interesting.
Everybody was falling in love with Mary.
Yeah.
In fact, and the big thing, why did she want to meet Elizabeth? That was her great obsession all her life. Yeah. She thought that once she met Elizabeth, all the problems would evaporate, that she would, in fact, seduce and charm Elisabeth as well as everybody else. She was convinced of it, that all it was going to take was one meeting.
Right.
And Elisabeth would be charmed.
We sure fooled her, didn't we?
Yes. Well,
Why did Elizabeth refuse that meeting all those years?
she was pressured all her life to sign a death warrant for Mary. She was very insecure, Elisabeth, because first of all, her own claim to the English throne was not 100% sure. So she thought, if I kill one monarch, I pave the way for my own beheading, and I'll be the next one. The Schiller play, of course, dramatizes that tremendous meeting that Mary so much wanted. It's the dramatic focus of the piece. Mary, in fact, begins the interview very well. She swallows her pride, and she goes and she kneels in front of Elisabeth, and she says, I have given up, I'm ready to give up the world, the throne. Just call me a sister and forgive me and free me.
When she says this business about Stuarda's sister to her, the first thing Elisabeth says, no, you belong in the dirt.
That's right.
You know, so it has to go from there. I mean, Mary is royalty.
What Elisabeth,
she's going to take that up immediately.
What Elisabeth does, she does not, in fact, soften, as everybody expected when Mary does this. She hardens. She kind of really vengefully enjoys that triumph and keeps goading Mary. She keeps really abusing her. In fact, what that whole conversation builds to is two words, actually, and they are the words that do Elisabeth in. It's vil bastarda.
That's the truth.
Because that's the thing, that was her weakest point.
I think it begins with Elizabeth. Where she's coming from is that it's a political
Absolutely.
confrontation.
Oh, yeah.
Mary
Absolutely.
is totally romantic and is into that part of it.
Yeah.
But as it starts to turn and Mary
Yes,
takes
that's
more
right.
and more garbage
That's right.
from Elizabeth, it starts turning around. And finally, when she says something to her, it's all political.
Yes, it's political and sexual, but the sexual takes over, I think, in the opera.
The woman
Yes, the woman takes over.
Which is
a jealous woman.
Which is why Leicester's role has been increased in the opera, because he is the romantic focus. They're both in love with him. Cecil was her Lord Treasurer. He was constantly at Elisabeth all his life to get rid of Mary. In the opera, of course, Talbot is an amalgam of various characters because he has to fulfill various functions. He is, of course, Mary's previous jailer. He is always pleading with Elisabeth to save Mary's life. And in fact, his wife, who was on the outs with him at that point, started spreading very ugly rumors that he and Mary were having an affair.
Right, which undoubtedly they were.
Well,
The real well-developed character in this opera happens to be Elizabeth. He defines her just perfectly. You see the most powerful woman in the world, and at her time, that's exactly what she was, frightened to death of Mary, Queen of Scots, which makes you then ask the question, what is there about Mary that is so frightening to Elizabeth? And that's why it's hard to play that part. Imre Palo is a singer's conductor. And when Stuarda came up, Palo came up, and that was that.
A secure conductor is like a good psychologist. They can see immediately what that artist is and what they are responding to. And then they temper it a bit. As rehearsals go on, there's sort of a little thread that goes on between you and the conductor, and there's a tremendous, it's like a small umbilical cord. And that, when he's in the pit and you're up on the stage, it's very obvious when a conductor really respects the artist and is there to not be an accompanist, but be a helper. And in Imre's case, I found working with him always that has been the case.
The first coaching session is to find out what the people are about. I usually go into a coaching session saying nothing at first. I just want to hear what they have to offer. I get even certain ideas during that thing, which they brought, and I said, gee, how come I didn't think about it? They outsmarted me, but that's just fine.
I mean, there's always a lot of points that there are disagreements on. One of you will either convince the other, or you'll do it and grit your teeth. It all depends. A lot of times there's some trade-offs. We'll have compromises. It's sort of a situation of, gee, this part I really feel uncomfortable with, but I can bring myself to do that if you can give me this leeway 10 measures later, if you'll let me do what I need to do there. Then you feel like at least you're scratching each other's back.
Are you uncomfortable doing the diminuendo on the thing?
I think they're out there.
It's a technical problem that my voice doesn't seem to handle.
What I'm saying is, if you're uncomfortable, then we have to change him to it. I mean, either both makes with the crescendo. No, I know, but then let's change him to it if you are not feeling comfortable with it. That's all.
Well, I'm doing the best I can.
Play with it. But if you feel uncomfortable, then let's change him to it. I mean, we can take a few days and that's it.
A good musician, a good conductor will say, can we try it this way? And a singer will say, can I try it this way? And there's usually a compromise. You know, very rarely do you meet the prima donna on either side of the footlights.
I couldn't sing at any of the musical rehearsals here because I was in dress rehearsals for another opera. And that's very frustrating. I find it, because it really doesn't serve any purpose except to inform. This is what I'm going to do here. I can't quite show you how I'm going to do it, but I'll be doing it in 2 weeks' time.
There's a process called marking, which singers use to conserve their voices. Some singers sing along normally until they come to a high part, and suddenly they'll drop their voices an octave lower. I used to sing softly instead. It seemed like a very natural transition to me. I took the job actually July 1979, and there's nothing left over from the previous season that isn't mine. The most difficult part of my job, and the one that I'm equipped for only because I'm a celebrity, is fundraising. I have to raise money to keep us alive. We have, of course, a very important director of development, and that's Albert Hughes. Albert and I travel together all over this country raising money. I'd say each year I have to raise $3 million in addition to everything else. In this respect, Europe is light years ahead of the United States. It's quite difficult to do when you have ballet companies, symphonies, chamber music societies, acting companies, all the arts together, museums, we're all asking for the same needs. So I carry my little pillow. It says, support the arts, kiss a soprano. Across the hall sits Daniel Rule. Daniel is the managing director of the company. I make all the artistic decisions, and it's up to Daniel Rule to get the time period and the money settled with the management of the artist. Once that is done, we then move over to John Bowenzi, who is known as the Assistant Artistic Administrator. He is my computer. I feed him all my dreams of perfect casts, and out comes the unavailabilities. Danny Sienna is my personal secretary. She does everything for me. Our technical director is Gilbert Hemsley, who runs the production department, which coordinates all the backstage activities. But it's the rehearsal department which has to satisfy the largest number of people. The head of the rehearsal department, with the title of music administrator, is Donald Hazard.
Well, we plan everybody's life. Everybody, that is, who is on stage performing, or in the pit performing, or backstage performing in any way at all. We do the daily schedules, we do a weekly chorus schedule, we do an orchestra schedule long before the season starts for the entire season, and just have to coordinate all these various schedules so that we know who's where, when, and hope that we don't have too many people in too many places at the same time. So we get all the information together and make a great charts where we put down everybody's availabilities, days people are not available. Then we do the orchestra rehearsal. And the technical department does the technical rehearsal. We work together in planning that. Then we do the chorus rehearsal is the next step of the process. So when we've planned that all out and all the union rules to do with the chorus, the orchestra, for instance, you have to have their schedule before the season begins, and you cannot change anything without 10 days notice. And the one thing you have to remember after all this is done is that you're not playing with pieces on a board. You're not playing a jigsaw puzzle. You are working with people and lives. And it might look wonderful on paper, but then you suddenly realize that you have a mezzo-soprano starting at 10 in the morning and finishing at 11 at night. And that doesn't work either.
Ready? Go.
One, Captain Guard. And two. And three.
Very good, Sal.
The only time there's friction between any two people is when one of the singers is having troubles and they're insecure. But when you have two very secure singers, what you get is a state of excitement that can sometimes bring the audience into a frenzy.
It's unusual to have two sopranos. As a matter of fact, the role that I'm doing can be sung by a mezzo. But my role, my voice is a heavier voice in contrast to Ashley's, so it makes sense. I suppose if you wanted to get down to the bottom line, two sopranos can't be palsy-walsy. But I think there's a matter of respect and appreciation of the other's talent. And you play off that.
This is the first time I've been in a complete opera with another soprano. It's harder than I thought it would be. It feels very easy now, but it didn't feel easy along the way, and I couldn't figure out why.
I've often said that it's not your voice, it's your legs, because you're on your feet so much. At the end of the day, that's really what's tired as far as I'm concerned, my legs, not my voice.
My stamina is not such as I see in some of my colleagues. Some people seem to be able to sing and sing and sing and do performances of all kinds of things and in very close proximity and not have any wear and tear. I don't do so well that way, and in fact, if I take a month off and don't sing a note that whole month, I'm in great shape when I start again.
I can remember doing performances when I first started and I've always done these very mean ladies. I suppose that's the real me. I don't know, they accuse me of being that. Where at the end of the performance, my neck and my arm were just so tight from all the tension. So I've learned not to put the tension in the body, you know, rather in the voice.
You know, I'm constantly in Maria Stuarda thinking about the next phrase and how I'm going to get through it, much less make it beautiful and effective and make whatever the sound is that I'm looking for reach people.
That's why singers are crazy, because any kind of little throat problem, you know, you cannot, for instance, in your work, you can say, oh, I've got a headache and a cold, nobody cares. But I cannot go out on stage and say, gee, folks, I didn't get much sleep last night. They have paid $25 and they really could care less. It's my responsibility to go out there and do the best I can.
It is the perfect cast for this, because they all have exactly the kind of quality you would want in each of those characters. Ashley has everything for Mary. She's young, she's vulnerable, and yet when she finally turns on Elisabetta, she turns on her as a queen. It's a wonderful process, and in the course of it, Ashley goes through all the gamut of emotions.
I've always found Mary fascinating. I don't even remember when it started, but it obviously was in some history class someplace, and I've always felt whatever charisma she had historically has always been clear to me in reading about her, and that I just feel an affinity for her that I don't feel for Elizabeth, for instance.
Marissa has that kind of strength and energy and edge that's perfect for Elisabetta. In fact, she was a very feminine woman, and Marissa can do both sides very well.
First, I read the text, and in this case, it's marvelous because it's a real character. So you read a lot of books about the person and about the time, and particularly as it regards the characters in the particular opera.
The best part of singing an opera is the rehearsal period as opposed to the performance, usually, because I enjoy the exploration process of learning the character, of finding one's way through that. Also, there's not the added pressure of 3,000 people watching you do it.
voice and the singing, or they belong together. They're not separate. If there's no reason to move unless the music impels you to, or the text really compels you to move.
During this, even though she's appealing to you, you can't move. Okay. Obviously, because if you make a move, you're going to run right into her. I just like to give them the blocking, suggest certain very clear things, and I like to do it with the music. And the first sessions, of course, you have to see how they respond and how you respond to them, what kind of atmosphere you're going to create, and that will set really the tone for the rest of the rehearsals.
You become close to the people that you're working with. I think part of it is that you're all taking that big risk of getting out there and doing it, and there's just a little feeling of, gee, if there's anything I can do to help, or just even give you a little strength or energy or a good look when you feel like you're in trouble or whatever, great. But it's sort of we're all in it together. I'm really scared. It'll be real fun, I think, maybe by the 5th performance. But I'm not going to know whether I can even get through the opera until I go out on opening night.
As you turn, yeah, you really should, because she needs the space. No. Move on the music. Let's do it. Desperado. Se mami. Se mami.
I just was born into the opera house. My father was a singer, eventually director of the opera in Budapest.
That's right.
First, I wanted to become a singer, and my father eventually told me not with this voice. And he was very right. He gave me some lessons. And I mean, since then also my love for singing and for the singers, I just feel with them very much. And then the next best thing which came into my mind was conducting. And I think I was 7 or 8 when I said I'll be a conductor. And I still didn't change my mind.
I was 10 years old, no, 9 years old, actually, in Rome. Because my father was in the Italian diplomatic service, and he was then posted in Rome at the ministry. And we were in a rented apartment in Rome. This was right after the war. And I was rummaging around, and I discovered, I was a voracious reader, even at 8, 9. I discovered a big stack of opera libretti in some cupboard. And I started going through them like there was no tomorrow. I just would read, every moment I had, I would go and read these libretti, till my parents discovered it and decided it was not a good idea, that it was not a good thing for a susceptible 9-year-old, and they locked them up. However, I'd gotten enough of a whiff of that when my 10th birthday came along, they said, what did you want for your 10th birthday? And I said, I wanted to go to the opera. I picked the opera, which was Tosca, and they allowed me, they unlocked that one libretto, and by the time I got there, I had memorized the entire text. And then I realized that what I really wanted to be was in opera, and the obvious thing to do would be to be a director.
We have a unique problem in this theater in that I'm playing 5 and 6 operas at the same time. Therefore, there are 5 sets hanging. We're in repertoire. We can't really destroy everything each time, so that the pipes are occupied a good deal of the time. The pipes meaning the things from which canvas drops are hung and other things are hung. So we have to be very careful with the size of the production. We know that pieces have to be able to fit in the wings of the theater, so that we are limited, because we're a repertory company, we're limited in the size of the production. So what we need are very gifted, imaginative designers and very gifted, imaginative directors. And our Gilbert Hemsley is just one of those people who can, you know, make magic time.
I would have liked to spend more time with Fabrizio, but we just haven't had time. But we just do it and make it happen. We're both businessmen in the theater business, and we come together and we make it happen. Fabrizio wanted things actually quite simple. A little color, a lot of dramatic. We have what we call, you know, Elisabetta is a coming in cue. And we have more impending doom and things like that. So we kind of try to make it look dramatic as well as being visible. The season is 12 weeks long, and it's almost every day, all day, from 8 to 11. And I work through many meals in order to stay organized, keep ahead of everybody that you have to keep ahead of. It is tough. The crew is wonderful all the way around.
The stage manager here is the person in charge of the performances. What he says on stage goes. What I'm doing is running the technical side of the performance and the rehearsals. Once cueing is established for lighting and follow spots and the scenery movement, I give the words that make it happen. The cues come from Gilbert, the technical director. They come from the stage director, sometimes the conductor, depending upon what the cues are. The cues to bring in a curtain would be from the director or the conductor. Lighting cues, follow spot cues come from Gilbert. Movement on the fly rail, scenery flying in and out, could be any of a number of people, the designer or director. I find that I am constantly referring to paperwork on productions. It's pretty much impossible to keep 17, 18 different productions in your head. And that's what we're doing this season, over a 10-week period, 18 different shows. The coming together, I believe, is more the fact that everybody knows their job. They know what they have to do. There's enough discussion between the groups to let everybody else know what you're doing, but you have an end to accomplish. And Joe Citarella has an end to accomplish. And Imre, the conductor, has an end to accomplish. Fabrizio has an end to accomplish. And we all say, this is where we're going, we'll see you there. Everybody gets there at once. And everybody got there today. And more importantly, everybody will be further on the road Sunday night when we open.
When you do an opera production, even if you work in a very large room, as soon as you get on stage, that first technical rehearsal is absolute chaos.
For one thing, you realize that the gestures have to be larger or they're not reading. Space, totally different. No matter how we try to duplicate the space in the rehearsal hall to be the same 6 inches as it is on stage, it really isn't. And every 6 inches in a rehearsal hall is the equivalent of 19 inches on the stage.
Quali accenti? Al mio cospetto. We're right where we stopped, Imre?
Yes.
We were just-
Un favor, nostro.
And
You have that, un favor?
Yeah, good.
The first stage rehearsal is a disaster, and it took me years not to get upset about
Yes,
it,
took me-
because they forget the music, they forget the words, they forget the blocking, because it's a totally new world. They have got to deal with stairs suddenly where it was flat. They have got to deal with real props where you had, I don't know, a broomstick instead of a sword.
Now, this is where it gets exciting. This is where it gets exciting, so look at it. What I have to do is I have to learn to let go and let them do it, because they're the ones who have to do it.
One of the great changes is that in the rehearsal hall, the conductor is never more than 6 feet away from you, and suddenly your crutch, the only person you're left with when the big aria comes and the director disappears and everything disappears, your crutch suddenly is yards and yards away, and why isn't he here to help me? We try to give the singers as much a part of their costumes that would be problematical as we can. We give them the petticoat, the hook, so that they know the distance they have to stay away from people, so that they know when they sit down, the hook shouldn't go up.
I think these costumes actually are copies of things that Elizabeth
Yes,
wore.
she actually wore these things.
You know, they got some portraits of Elizabeth
Right.
and just really copied them, sort of copied them. I mean, they have to be bigger than life for the stage. But
Yes. Of course, it's heavy. It takes 2 ladies to hold them, to put me into it, because you can't hold it, one person can't hold it. And of course, the stage is rigged. So you're walking uphill with all this weight. But I will tell you this, once you've gotten into makeup and the whole thing, you feel so elegant that you've got to sing well. What you're seeing with us, however, is also unusual in that there are many of us that like each other as people off stage, which helps immeasurably, because I have had to work with people whom I literally hate. And, you want to bite my neck?
no, no, I just want to put a piece of Velcro on here so your neck looks gorgeous.
I like this better, incidentally. Those cuffs get in the way.
The cuffs don't make any sense.
They don't make any sense, and it's much more comfortable.
And we'll hook this on you so you don't have to worry about it.
And I never take the gloves off, so...
No, in that scene you
know what I'm
don't.
saying.
The only thing we have to worry about is the hat and the wig.
Well, I don't know what kind of wig I'm wearing.
We're going to have to check that.
My name is Carolina Tate, and I am in charge of the wig department and coordinating makeup and wig department together. We have to go through the whole production to know how many people are involved. Do I have to wig these people? What kind of makeups they have? Not everybody has a hairpiece or mustache or beards. It depends on the designer. And then we have always 2 rehearsals. One is the piano dress, and the other one is the orchestra dress. And then whatever changes must be, so we do.
After the dress rehearsals, the cast meets with the conductor and the director for last-minute corrections.
All right, let's have notes, and let's have notes and get out of here. That's the order of the day. Imre, you want to let's do
I have only one.
act by act?
Okay.
I have to say the same thing. Wait till that pure Allegro to get to him at the end.
I don't know why I can't do that.
Well,
I don't know why.
Let me hold my
I've never done it yet, have I?
no, not yet. At least you can think about it. But Sunday might be.
That's all. Otherwise, other than that, everybody was perfect.
That's it?
From the whole opera?
From the whole opera?
From the whole
I have
opera.
more notes for you
Yeah,
than
that's
that.
Actually, everybody was damn good
Yeah,
today.
very good.
And it's going to be very, very, very good on Sunday.
Absolutely.
Well, the switch from singer to general director was very easy for me. I've been with this company. As a matter of fact, the day I retired was my 25th anniversary with the company. I sang every place I really wanted to sing. I sang everything I wanted to sing. I just wish them half the fun I had.
I saw Beverly Sills do Maria Stuarda, and I was in college at the time, and I just was in heaven watching it and hearing it. And so to be entrusted with the same real treasure, really, is quite a special thing. So it's not a question of dwelling on the fact that I probably will be compared unfavorably to her. I think comparisons basically are odious, so that part of it I rebel against, but I wouldn't expect to be compared to her and be thought of as better in this role. I loved her in this role, and you know, if I went half that far, I'd be really happy.
The opera that you see tonight began 9 years ago and has had repetition. I sang it 40 times. It was a production that was created for me. And now I've passed Mary's crown on to another young woman, and it's going to begin its run all over again. And yet it must never appear to the public to be something we've been doing for years and years. Each time has to be a fresh and emotionally draining experience. That's what the New York City Opera is all about.